Broadcasting live from the Business Radio X studios in Atlanta, Georgia. It's time for Veterans Business Radio. Brought to you by ATL Vets, providing the tools and support that help veteran-owned businesses thrive. For more information, go to atlvets.org. Now, here's your host.
Lee Kantor here, another episode of Veterans Business Radio, and this is going to be a good one. But before we get started, it's important to recognize our sponsor, ATL Vets, inspiring veterans to build their foundation of success and empowering them to become the backbone of society after the uniform. For more information, go to atlvets.org. Today on the show, we have Yvonne Rea. She is a practitioner and educator with For a Better You to Wellness. Welcome, Yvonne.
Hey, good afternoon, Lee. Thank you so much for the invitation. I'm looking forward to maybe helping some others out there, some other veterans.
Well, I am excited to learn what you're up to. Tell us about your practice. How you serving folks?
Well, I'm a microcurrent specialist along with functional medicine. And the way that I'm serving them best is educating them and showing them alternative devices, alternative instrumentation to help relieve their chronic pain, inflammation, tissue issues is what I call it.
So what's your backstory? How'd you get involved in this line of work?
Well, former military, worked in the medical and the dental field for nearly a little over 15 years. I was stationed at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, and eventually my health really started to fail. Everything that we were trying at the hospital wasn't working, nor was there any idea about what was going on. So, I used to enjoy talking about pharmaceuticals and pills, but we couldn't figure out what the root cause was. And so eventually I started looking outside the box, mostly because it was just another pill to help with the current symptom I was having, but there was no real root cause understanding of any of the symptoms. And it was then when I started looking outside of the box that I learned natural, alternative. There's, a whole natural health out there, which is, in my opinion, at the time, I truly thought maybe if it worked, we'd be doing it here at these, naval training hospitals. I worked at, some of the largest. What I didn't understand is that, that is working on the chemical of the body. We're not actually working on anything or very little electrical, and we are more than just chemical beings. So I actually work on the electrical side of the house.
So can you explain to the listener what that means, the electrical side of the house, and maybe explain a little bit about this biofeedback microcurrent therapy that you work with?
Certainly. So, let's back up just a moment. Our bodies, we are more than just chemical. Chemical would be like your nutrients as well as, say, drugs that will play into the chemical part of the body. We're also spiritual and emotional beings, and we can be helped by those ways. We are also electrical. Most of us understand that if we've ever had a sibling or, as a young kid, we kind of scooch our socks, across the carpet and go zap a sibling or something, right? So with that electrical, we're working on that portion. And if there's any part of the body that is not working, if the electrical is not working, what happens is the electrical is carrying the fluids of the body. And in those fluids, that your blood, that's going to be your nutrients and your oxygen. So now fast forward to an area that either has a restricted electrical or a complete block electrical, that tissue becomes affected. Ultimately, it's going to be malnourished, maloxygenated. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's a little bit about the electrical side. Now, when it comes to, so I use devices and instrumentation. I use several different kinds. The one that we're talking about here today is mostly on the microcurrent instrumentation. So that electrical that I just spoke about in the body, that is our microcurrent in the body. And so when we tap into your microcurrent, the biofeedback portion can show us if there are any electrical resistances. So two things that most people will be familiar with are, let's say, an EKG. If you've ever had an EKG, they run 12 leads, and they're looking for any electrical blocks from the heart to the furthest regions of the tissue and then back. And then they'll have a graph that shows them. Now they're looking for the electrical blocks from the heart. But if you have an electrical block elsewhere, and that's all that they're focused on, other countries use these devices throughout the entire body. We are certainly opening that up. And for your veterans, I want them to recognize in the VA, if you go ask in the wound clinic as well as in pain management, these devices, you may not be aware, but they are available to you. They're on a couple formularies. If you can't find them, you get a hold of me. I'll help with your local hospital. But ultimately, those do not offer biofeedback. So it would be the biofeedback that allows us at home to review how the tissue is actually working during the treatment.
So how, for the layperson who isn't familiar with this, are these electrical shocks like noticeable, or they're like when they do the EKG, you don't feel anything when they happen? Is that the case here?
So, correct. Yeah, you don't feel it. This isn't a shock. What's happening is we're tapping into your electrical system, much like an electrician would come to your home. You have an outlet that's not working. He's going to take some instrumentation, put it in, and try to see where are the electrical blocks from this outlet to the breaker box outside and back. And he can register either on an ohm or a voltage meter where or how many blocks or areas of resistance that there are. So yes, there's a power level so that a person can feel it, but you don't actually even have to power up for this to work. It is still working in the body.
So now, going back to the analogy of the electrician in your house, the reason there might be a blockage is maybe a wire is broken or something physically is damaged. Is that the same thing with your body? Like you can tell, like on a certain side of your body, there might be a blockage, and then how does that translate into kind of figuring out how to relieve the pain or relieve the inflammation?
Sure. So, yes, it can help you locate. It not only locates, it detects and then can correct. A microcurrent can, with biofeedback, can detect and then correct. So your question was, if the tissue, so a couple things. If the tissue is inflamed, red, hot, how we use the microcurrent is to go in and literally drop that inflammation. Inflammation is the precursor to pain. And in the presence of inflammation, the body cannot go into that first stage of healing unless you drop that. It's a fire. It literally got to drop the fire, and then it can begin to move into that first stage of healing. Much like, what happens is the inflammation literally is pus. Your white blood cells are coming to the scene to try to help. As those die off because they're unable, maybe the quote unquote, the fire, the affected tissue, is too much, then it keeps bringing more. And we get this now we have swelling, which again, that's part of what is inflammation. Did that answer your question? I think I missed something in your question.
No, I was just trying to get an understanding of, okay, once you notice something is amiss, how does that help you kind of solve the problem?
Sure. And so a couple things that this can, what causes electrical blocks? I think basically was a question I missed earlier. That would be scar tissue for starters. Electrical cannot go past scar tissue, and we can talk about that in a minute. Also, it can't get past inflammation. Remember I said inflammation was that it pus, right? Think of what was that, the story, The Pea and the Princess? She kept putting these layers and layers of mattresses so that she wouldn't feel this little tiny bump. It's kind of like that. We have to start removing those mattresses. Or if you've ever been to the bar and, you said, hey, pour me a beer, and you got that big foam head. That head is like the inflammation. We want to blow that out of the way so we can get to the meat of things. That tissue is being blocked by the electrical. Remember I said earlier, the electrical is carrying the fluids of the body. So the electrical is actually helping to feed those tissues. The next thing that blocks electrical besides scar is inflammation, and then what we call affected tissue. Affected tissue is tissue that is either highly aggravated, agitated, or it's the complete opposite. It's underworking, underperforming. It's moving into atrophy. So any affected tissue will block electrical from coming through. Much like, I want you to imagine a river, and then you've got a beaver dam. When there's a beaver dam in a river, the water does one of a couple things. It's either going to try to vortex down, and or it'll try and maneuver its way around that beaver dam, eventually finding an outlet. Now, it could be quite a ways down, the river before it actually breaks through. But think about all that space in between. That tissue was not getting fluids, or the fluid went from like a fire hose down to a garden hose. And so those are some things that would block the tissue.
So now when patients are working with you, you actually are doing therapy to help kind of remove these blockages and to get the current flowing again?
Correct. So microcurrent therapy, you would come in for a session anywhere from 15 minutes to an hour. And the first thing we do is, after a health history, is see what scar tissues you have, see what your pain point is. If it's a frozen shoulder, 80% of the time we can get range of motion and decrease in pain in as little as one session. Typically, frozen shoulder will be between 2 and 4, and then you can get off and go on to the rest of your life. But then there's other types of pain. Organs typically don't have a pain sensation until it might be a little too advanced. But they would come in. Again, we can find the electrical blocks. We can see them. We chart them. You'll see them. You'll see them on our instrumentation. It's really pretty cool.
Now, when patients are dealing with this kind of pain, does it get to a point where if they don't treat it, that they just it's just always there in the background, like they just accept it?
Sure. So what the brain does is at some point, it's going to be firing with some pain, right? It's a great annoyance. And then how is it that, we're able to move forward? And yet still, if somebody were to ask you, what's your pain level? Or when you get home after you're fully focused on your job, your pain level is, 7+. How is it that I'm able to do that? And not only with the foot, the knee, the shoulder, oftentimes it's multiple. But what this does is it removes those blocks. In biofeedback, we connect with the brain and we remind the brain, hey, do you remember this long-term chronic issue that you kind of shut off? The brain says, hey, Lee, talk to the hand. We've got things to do. I mean, you're sitting here, you do vending events, you're on the radio, I imagine you have some pain somewhere, and yet you show up and you give your best, but oftentimes afterwards you may have this pain point that you just didn't notice during the interview or during the work. Is that a true statement for you by chance?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I have aches and pains on a regular basis that I'm sure I'm ignoring, and I'm not, actually doing therapy to improve. I've just accepted it. These are just the aches and pains of life.
And sometimes we call those tissue degradation, what they now call aging or, chronic conditions. If we look back in history, a chronic condition was well documented to just be a nutritional deficiency. So we can certainly come in, find those blocks. We'll make sure that your electrical is up and running. And then also through functional medicine, I'll then give you like a nutrient dense, this is concentrated amounts of whole food nutrition, because you want not just enough to survive the day or even maintain Lee's current status. Lee needs enough for not only the repair, but the rebuild of that tissue.
Yeah, that makes sense. Now, does your work, you mentioned you're in California before the show, do people have to physically be with you in order to kind of benefit from this, or is there something that you can do virtually, like over Zoom or something like that in order to help a person?
Absolutely. So you can be live or we can be virtual. Here in the clinic, we have programs that people can rent instrumentation. But obviously, if you're at a distance, and I do have people that have come from out of state to come see me, you can purchase a device, and then between me and the support team, the doctors, the videos that we have, you can learn to help yourself at home. And I'll tell you, when you've got one of these devices and family members come to visit, they want to use it. So at some point, my family comes over, even friends, and some of the first things they say is, by the way, so I've, just literally trained them how to use it for their little aches and pains. And, but it is, like I said earlier, available for, my buddies, the veterans in the VA hospital. It's in every hospital, whether, the HMOs, Sutter, Kaiser, here we have UC Davis. The tough thing is it's typically in either sports medicine or pain management, but I'm going to encourage those that are listening, go to your VA, go to your hospital and start asking for this tool, because it is available in the formulary, but it's not in every single one. So, I think part of it is about educating doctors. And so I like to try to get in front of doctors, let them know that this is available so that they can, better serve their patients. And, we have served our country. I think if we can get more that are, not in pain, and many like you, they've started a business, right? They've taken their military life, they've taken those skills and now they're serving their community. So this is one way that I try to serve. Also, you asked that earlier. And then I just have some special pricing for veterans as well. And we have Pay It Forward Fridays here. And anybody that appoints on Fridays, a portion of those funds go to help us either see somebody that can't afford it at all, or maybe they can afford a partial. And so we just kind of circle that around here in the community.
Now, is there a story you can share about somebody who came to you with some pain or inflammation and you were able to help get on to the other side of it?
Absolutely. Got lots of those types of stories. CRPS. CRPS is chronic regional pain syndrome. They live in a pain level of 10 plus every day. One gal, Melissa, developed a wound that was non-healing over the year before contacting me. They were now in talks about amputating the leg. We ended up getting together after somebody referred me, and we did daily treatment. She rented a device and then saw me once a week. And we closed, it was a 5x6 wound, and we closed that in about 10 weeks. Bone necrosis, we're currently doing a clinical trial for lungs. Like many others, like myself, exposed to chemicals. Though my lungs were not impacted, my liver and other organs were. And this device first broke up the scar tissue in the liver and then helped, and that's off-label, but then helped with the inflammation and other pain points for me personally. I also had a motorcycle accident, and that has helped with that pain. I've had people that have had TBIs, traumatic brain injuries, and have come in. Maybe they've got one gal, Melissa, she for 41 years drooling and drop foot, and she was falling or tripping every day because of this drop foot. And with her, we again, home device. She took that home, and I think it was maybe once a week sessions. But ultimately, what happened with her was faster thinking. She stopped drooling within about the first 2 weeks, and it was probably about 4 months before she was no longer tripping over her dropped foot. Again, lots more. Jeff with a motorcycle accident. You can imagine he was mangled. They did not expect him to live, but it was all mostly musculoskeletal. And, when he came to see me, he was living in pain levels of 8 to 10. First and second session, we were able to begin to drop some of those pain levels, increase his range of motion. And then over the next couple weeks, with a home device, again, ideally, if they treat daily, we just get faster treatments. Some can't afford to do that, so they come and see me once or twice a week for a period of time. I think other than my traumatic brain injury, I don't see anybody probably past 8 or 10 sessions because their tissue issue is resolved.
And then once it's resolved, then it kind of stays resolved?
Well, ultimately, with me, I put them on a nutritional program. So when I showed up at one of the clinics here in Sacramento, there were 9 of us that were certified in Microcurrent, and the owner and the nurse of that center said, she brought me in as her nutritional director, and she said, Yvonne, we're getting 40 to 50% better results with the nutrition. Microcurrent, terahertz, scalar, these are other tools that I work with. None of these can rebuild missing tissue. The only thing that I'm aware of that can rebuild missing tissue is nutrients, nutrition. Now, there is a word called regeneration. With the devices we use, there is the ability for regeneration. We get the blood flowing again. We drop the inflammation. We open up that scar tissue. We get the blood flowing again. And then whatever you're putting in this pie hole, the nutrient density, and if you're just purchasing from your local commercial produce, that's not going to be very nutrient dense. Most of those are nutrifying those plants with chemical fertilizers. So I'm talking about, minerals, amino acids. Obviously, vitamins come from the sun. Plants actually have a lot of vitamins. It's the minerals that, if you don't have minerals, the vitamins, the amino acids, the omegas can do nothing in the presence or lack of presence of minerals. Those minerals are the Uber drivers. They will take all those nutrients, not just into the bloodstream. Think about this. We need to get into the tissue that is affected, the tissue that needs to be, whether it's the eyes, the brains, the muscle, the tendon, the ligament, the organs. They has to actually get into that tissue. It's not enough just to get into the bloodstream.
So if somebody wants to live a little bit more pain-free, what is the best way to connect with you and learn more?
Thank you. So you first look me up for the number 4, A Better You Too Wellness. I'm just outside of Sacramento, California, and I've got a YouTube. I'm not a, big media person, so you're going to see some pretty raw footage. I also have a Facebook page, and our office line is 916-990-8907, and you're welcome to give me a call or text. And just, when you do, let me know that, you heard us here, and let's give a shout out back to Lee and to the Veterans Business Radio as well.
Well, thank you so much. And Yvonne, we really appreciate you coming on and sharing your story today. You're doing such important work, and we appreciate you.
Thank you, Lee. Thank you for the invitation. Real delight for me. I'm glad that we can, together, we'll be affecting some people, and I'll let you know.
Well, this is Lee Kantor. We'll see you all next time on Veterans Business Radio.